Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Mormon Stories Podcast. I am one of your hosts for today, John DeLynn. I'm here with Carah Burrell, also known as Nuance O.
Hey, guys.
On the YouTube channel. We have some bad news and good news. Bad news is something was wrong with the StreamYard setting, its interface with John Larson, and we were not able to get John Larson's set up to work. It's not John's fault. It's got to be StreamYard's fault. And so John is not able to appear today because his stuff wasn't working. We can just, we can go ahead and just not do a show, but Carah's already here in the audience. She's fabulous. You're
I'm in
fabulous.
the audience for you. Carah's ready to watch me talk.
You should make the beard joke now.
Oh, the beard joke. Does everyone like John's beard? I said, how you doing? You know, and somebody grows out a beard. But mostly I asked, you know, are you afraid that you can't become a bishop now? That was the last thing that was going to hold him back.
I'm devastated. So what I think could be fun to do is just do a Q&A. And if nobody wants to do a Q&A, then we'll just all go home early and enjoy our families. But for the moment, I'm going to have Julia monitor the chat and have her star any questions or comments that are interesting, and we'll review them. I also, I just dropped my mouse.
You want me to grab it?
I'm also willing to have just people come on the live stream actually and chat with us. I just saw, for example, that Colby's in the house.
Colby.
So I'm going to do something just really crazy, and I'm going to copy this StreamYard link into the comments. And if you want to appear on the show, you can copy that link and join us, and we'll consider bringing you on if we know you and if you don't look too sketchy. But before we begin, Carah, give us an update on what's new in your life and what's interesting.
What's new and interesting to me? You guys know me. I used to work here at Mormon Stories, co-host, producer back in the day. And, you know, got a husband, 3 kids. So I'm always trying to make good content for the ex-Mormon community with more lulls and just kicking it over at my house. And I just moved my studio back to my home. And I will be releasing a lot more fun content in the future. So I'm excited for this Q&A because everybody just ask any old question that you have that's on your mind relating to what deconstruction. We do church history,
current events.
And I have a fun announcement.
How to handle believers, non-believers,
because one thing,
marriages.
One thing that you and I are famous for, John.
What?
Is my episode with my friend Eve, who was sitting in this chair about 1 year ago, last October. And she wants to do an update finally. So she's coming into town over Christmas. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's an episode. It has almost as many views as the most top Mormon Stories videos that have ever been viewed. It's probably like got 500,000 views at this point.
Whoa, that's amazing.
Of me interviewing my friend with John and kind of dropping some truth bombs about church history and letting her deconstruct in real time. Was it the most ethical thing? No, but she was a dear friend of mine and she had agreed to do it. So a lot has changed in her life since that last year. So that's my cool announcement. So make sure that you're following my YouTube channel, Nuance O. And hopefully I'll get that out in a couple of weeks.
All right. That'd be fun. It'd be fun to see her. All right. Well, first thing we have to do is thank people for their super chats. So Camped Spell, thanks for that super chat. And then Scott Wilson also gave a super chat. Please start your questions or comments rolling in. Please join us at the link we shared. And Ray Kavanaugh has the first question, Carah. Rory Kavanaugh. And he asks, where do you buy Mormon undergarments? Carah, I'll let you go first.
Where do I buy them? I buy them on eBay. No, just kidding. When I was Mormon, I would buy them from the distribution center of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So what's a distribution center for the Never Mormons out there?
So usually sometimes they're next to the temples. You can buy them online now, but, in Orem, Utah, there's a store that you go to where you can buy your manuals and your books and your temple clothes, and there's like other section of it that you can go through. I think you can also probably get them. No, you can't quite get them at Deseret Book, can you? But you got to have your temple recommend, and you walk into a separate section of the store, and it's got walls of all kinds of white underwear in bags just lining the entire store. And you go in and you go drop a bunch of money to buy underwear that will fit completely irregularly and be really uncomfortable, and you just waste a bunch of money until you find the right size because you got to buy them and try them on. And it's one of the worst things that I've ever had to go through in my life.
What was it? What were the 3 worst things about wearing garments for a woman? Go.
Not me personally, because I have excellent health. But some would complain about yeast infections. You're wearing kind of like biker shorts, so it gets a little hot in there. Second one,
especially in Utah in the summer.
Yeah. Overall, just general like chafing and heat. So when I was pregnant, I had the worst. I had to just be in a robe the entire time because anything touching my skin was irritating. I had to be like, sorry, Jesus, I can't be holy right now. The worst thing is probably just how much you feel like your body is not your own. And as much as it's supposed to be like, they say in church that you wear garments because it's like a wedding ring that just like you promised and this is a sign of your commitment to your spouse. Garments are supposed to be like a sign of your commitment to God, and you wear them all the time and they're a protection, but they also create a lot of like scrupulosity and a lot of paranoia. Like if you're not wearing them, you don't feel like you're going to be protected quite as well. So it led to just really kind of disassociating from like who I am as a person and feeling just like, oh, well, I'm married now. I just have to dress ugly and I can't be cute anymore and just got to give up. And just, I think overall your self-esteem and your body not feeling like it belongs to you is like the absolute worst part. What about for you, John?
Wait, you can't, I'm asking the questions here. So I'm just kidding. You can ask questions too, but I wasn't done. So Carah, did you cheat? So like I'm spilling a little Dehlin family Mormon tea. This is something I rarely, if ever, do. It's just like randomly chat. But like in Houston growing up, it was super hot. We're talking sometimes it was 100 degrees and 100% humidity. My mom would she would not wear her bottoms, but wear her tops, or wear her tops, but not wear her bottoms. Did you ever cheat?
Never.
Did you ever cheat?
Never. People do not understand how devout of a Mormon I was.
Wait,
truly.
Don't say my mom wasn't devout. My parents were devout.
I think everyone has personal revelation of like, I have a deal with Jesus, and he's fine
they
with me doing
customize their buffet. Yeah. Everyone's a buffet Mormon, right?
Yeah.
So quit slam on my parents. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, but you were saying.
I was saying I never cheated when I was Mormon, because I really did believe that, like, as much as this is a difficult commandment to live, everything is supposed to be difficult. You're supposed to be proving, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's difficult, you're supposed to be proving your devotion to God. And it's like, this is technically a pretty easy way to do that, I guess. Once I started deconverting in my mind slowly over time, I started testing things where it's like, I was told that if I drink coffee, the spirit will withdraw from my home. Well, I'm a really tired mom, and let me try this because I'm sick of energy drinks. And so it's like, I tried to be like, I didn't even have any other underwear, which is surprising. People don't understand. Like, I didn't have period underwear. I didn't have anything. So I had to like actually go out of my way to conscientiously go to a website to buy underwear and be like, how do I feel? Do I feel different? And I would test things like that because they say, and Jesus says in the scriptures, like, if this is a true commandment, you can test it and you'll know the difference. And started to believe in a different type of God where I was like, I just don't think that this is a real symbol of what the church has told me that it is. That's how I started to feel. And then here I am today, shoulders out.
All right. Well, there's a lot of comments or questions coming in about garments. So I'm going to read them and we can respond. Is that a thing? YouTube, read and respond? Is that a thing?
Read and respond?
Yeah.
No, you're the first person to ever do that.
Okay. Kyle writes, every time I think of garments, I think of having to pack for a backpack trip and figuring out how I was going to fit 7 pair of garments, tops and bottoms, along with all the other stuff I needed. Yeah, I totally, half my suitcase was rolled up garments with the one bottom and one top rolled up into like a cloth scroll, basically. And then you'd stack those in your suitcase because you can't wear the same garments 2 days in a row, right?
No.
Because that's gross.
You absorb all your sweat.
Anyway, that's Kyle. Julie, keep any comment or question, please star it, and then I'll know to review it. This is interesting. Robin Nomea, I hope I pronounced that right, Robin. Robin messages me often. I think she's in Arizona, but she says her grandma said that she could never let them touch
I never let mine touch the ground either. Yep.
That's the thing, that there was like it's like the flag. The flag's not supposed to touch the ground in your garments. Like literally you're in the bathroom and you got to take them off for whatever reason. You're like supposed to have them dangling on your ankle or dangling on your wrist because they're too sacred, right? Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. When I went into the temple when I was 19, it's a real moment. If you guys can remember back when you go through the temple, and it's a transition moment, felt like from going from being a child in the church to an adult in the church when you first take out your endowments in the temple and you're in the locker room and the old lady helps you open them up and kind of gives you some instructions. And I made sure to wear like my most provocative pair of Victoria's Secret underwear as I was like, goodbye, my love. And then I had to put on, and then the second I looked in the mirror, I just had this like, I'm doing the hard thing. I'm doing the hard thing that I know is the right thing to do. And I just saw my mom in the mirror. I saw a whole different, and when you're like, just at any phase, when you're 19 and you're suddenly like, this is transitioning in your mind. Now I'm this whole other person and I kind of belong to the church. Like what I wear when I take it on and off is constantly a reminder of like, don't mess up. Don't do something where God's going to be mad at you. And the old lady opened it up. Yeah. And she told me, make sure these never touch the floor. And you're like, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Got it, Sister Beeston.
Yeah. Also, for those who don't know, we could just call this episode on Mormon garments, but you're not supposed to just throw them away, right? You're supposed to. So the garment shirt has a square on one breast, a compass, a little stitch square and compass, and then like a little line where the belly is. And then the bottoms have a little stitch line, and you're supposed to scissor out the little Masonic symbols. Do what with them? And
either burn them or just cut them into pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're no longer holy. And then, well, I guess they're literally holy, but they're not spiritually infused. Mm-hmm. What is it? What? Mm-hmm. Explain this, Carah.
I think that it comes from the idea that if somebody found them in the garbage and they didn't have it cut out, then somebody who didn't make the covenants could technically wear them, which is funny and true because I had a friend in my old ward once. It was my home teacher, and when he was inactive and he didn't know what was what, he just like took a white shirt out of his dad's closet and he didn't know what it was. And he wore a garment shirt to a party once and he didn't know that wasn't. I just think that's pretty. And he was in Salt Lake too. And everyone's like, dude, why are you just wearing some garments or whatever? So I think the wrong person coming across, or the right person coming across a pair of garments, just thinks it's a white shirt that like had some stitching in it, that had a hole or something. And so I think the idea is if somebody finds it in the garbage or whatever, they can't just go around wearing it.
True Transformation Podcast writes, man, that is so weird. We all actually did that. Yeah, we did. And I think the preferred way to dispose of garments is to burn them. How did Aaron burn his garments? Do you know? Or
I took care of that. I'm the good wife. I always cut them out.
Okay. You cut them out.
Yeah, I cut them out.
Brad X is asking where John Larson is. We announced at the beginning of the show that John Larson had technical problems with StreamYard. It wasn't his fault, but StreamYard didn't cooperate with John's computer, so he wasn't able to join us. So we're doing an extemporary episode with the Q&A with the Carah Burrell from Nuance Ho. Thanks to Boyd X for the super chat. Sam Young is in the house.
Sam Young,
we love that guy. Sam Young is a hero. Sam, if you want to join the show, we'd love to have you on. Sam writes, hey, Carah, John, and John, talking about women's Mormon underwear, gonna donate for that alone. Sam, for those of you who don't know, Sam Young led a multi-year movement to get the church to stop making it easy for abusers to abuse children. It was called Protect LDS Children. He did a couple marches, and he encouraged the church to stop one-on-one interviews with children where bishops or stake presidents would sit alone in a room with closed doors with an 8 or 12-year-old kid to ask them questions about where they may or may not touch themselves. And Sam got the church to change faster than almost any one I've ever seen. And of course, as a warm thank you for his efforts to improve the church as a former bishop. What happened, Carah?
He got excommunicated, and
He
then
was ceremoniously excommunicated.
and I like want to cry. Sam, I'm so happy that you're here. Literally, when that was happening, that was right at the beginning of the end for me, and it was so important for me. I wasn't able to look into church history until that news came up, and I was such a child's rights activist at the time, and I was like, the church is doing what? And that's where I was like, all right, let's look at all the history now. Well, thank you, Sam. Thank you for all you do.
Yeah, Jenny says, I love you, Sam Young. Songs of Our Own says, Sam Young, thank you for your work. Guy says, what is the latest with Sam? The only thing I know, and I don't know if Sam doesn't want me to say this, but I think Sam has a new employer, but I'll let Sam talk about the details. Really quickly, there's more on garments coming in, Carah. Corey Hoare 3050 writes, after cutting the marks out, you could use them as wash rags.
Yeah, my mom did that.
But isn't that kind of weird? Like, they're sacred. They're so sacred with the marks on that they can't touch the ground. But if you just snip out the little symbols, but they're still obviously garments, then you're like using Windex and washing your windows. Like, isn't that a washing your toilet?
Are you kidding me? That's like the most Mormon thing ever, because
it is
like the utility.
But come on, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Is it weird?
It's weird, but my family was really poor growing up, and I can't imagine my mom would ever buy a wash rag to say, if her life depended on it. And so she's like, yeah, at least use these. That's fine.
Daniel Wesseman writes, I had a friend that was excommunicated on his mission, and he told me his mission president told him to burn his underwear before he went home. That's kind of intense. So you're on a mission, you're getting sent home, and your mission president says, burn all your underwear before you go home. That's kind of a traumatic ritual. Like, there's already this walk of shame. Mm-hmm. Imagine the movie, Carah. You're coming out of your mission president's office. He's excommunicated you. He's sending you home. And then the last thing you do before you go to bed and hop on a plane is what?
Strip naked and set a fire.
Start a big bonfire.
Yeah.
And you don't have underwear.
Yeah.
So what are you going to wear?
I think also, can I just
commando.
Add at this
Can you imagine
time?
missionaries going commando, burning their...
Yeah. The other topic of Mormon underwear we have to bring up is, like, how many people in the audience can also relate that last time I bought my own underwear was I was 19 years old. I went through the temple. I'm 30, leaving the church. And I don't even know first of what kind of underwear I would like, what size I am, where to start. And it's like this whole new exploration of getting new underwear for yourself. And it's so weird because you feel again, you're leaving the Truman Show in a weird way. And you're like, the most fundamental thing is I don't know what kind of underwear to buy now. The church has kind of just told me what to wear for a long time. So I'll keep the rest of that private. But
there's several comments about missionaries going commando. We've literally never had comments about missionaries going commando before, but there we are. Elaine Chester writes,
getting unhinged. Commando missionary,
lopsided Leahona says, so then he goes commando. I'm just going to hop all around here. Trixie Delight says, Carah, have you ever heard that Joseph Smith was the Holy Ghost? I once had a conversation with Hartman Rector Jr. about this. And Hartman Rector is Lila Tuller's dad, if I'm remembering right. Had you heard that? So the Godhead in Mormonism, there's the Trinity, Heavenly Father, Elohim, God the Father, Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and then the Holy Ghost. But what's the Holy Ghost's name? Does the Holy Ghost have a dual identity? Had you ever heard that maybe it was Joseph Smith?
I guess I've heard that passed around, but pretty much Mormonism, you guys have got to get a rein in on this whole personal revelation. People are just able to say whatever they want sometimes. I got a question.
Okay, what is it?
John, when did Mormons start wearing garments? What is the history of it? Have they always worn garments? Have they always looked like this?
I'm pretty sure garments started in Nauvoo as, here's what I know. What I know is that many in Joseph's family had been Masons. At some point, they bring a Masonic lodge to Nauvoo in Illinois. I'm going to guess it's 40, 41, 42, something like that. And, Joseph never saw an idea that he didn't want to incorporate into Mormon doctrine and theology. And so he goes through the Masonic Lodge temple ceremony, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, we need to have our own sort of, I would say, in similitude of the Masonic Lodge ceremony. So he does the temple ceremony, and he infuses the Masonic symbols into the garments. And this was a moment of weirdness for me, because somebody, in Texas, I'm a kid, I didn't wear garments, but I saw my dad wear them. And then once I learned about the little square and the compass, it's like an upside down V and then an L, square and compass. If you ever see like a Masonic symbol, there's like a square and a compass, and then what's the letter in the middle, Carah? Do you know? Anyone know? All right, dear listeners and viewers, special brownie points for the first person who writes in the letter that's in the middle of the Masonic symbol, the square and the compass. What's the letter? It looks like Julia's got it. It's a G. And I knew it was a G. I don't know what the G stands for.
Garments.
That was good. So Josh got it. Lead with Love got it. Lots of people got it. Valerie says R. Valerie's just guessing. Come on, Valerie. Don't just guess. Lopsided Leahona did L. Come on, guys. No guessing here. We need scholars. That's fun. Someone's joining us from Brazil. This is Veridana Carvalho from Brazil. So glad you're joining us. Okay. Somebody said the G stands for God. Cynthia says it stands for gullible. What do you think, Carah?
I think that's really disrespectful. I think that it's a unique LDS tradition, and we should respect it.
Just
kidding. I think it's just one of those things where everything within Mormonism, I just wish I would have understood the history, that everything within Mormonism, doctrine, policy, what you wear on your body that's told it's never going to be changed is changed. And so one of the reasons I wanted to ask that was because they used to be, long underwear, and the FLDS still wear garments as if it's long underwear. That's why they wear those long prairie dresses, because their garments that they have, like Warren Jeffs and stuff, go all the way down to their wrists and their ankles. So there was a time in which God said, this is what you have to wear to have protection from God. And constantly over time, they're being reformed. And I think there's also truth to the fact that with the garments that we have today, John, correct me if I'm wrong, that they are made entirely by slave labor. No, they're made entirely directed by men. That the women do not actually get a say in like the fabrics and designs of what is going to be fitting on women's bodies. And it's
they do now. They do now, but they didn't for a long, long time. Yeah.
Well, they didn't ask me, and that's all I need asking. Yeah. So I think that it's important. When I was Mormon, I wish I would have realized that you can take a little bit more liberty with this, because it felt so strict. Because you truly believe it's one of those very easy things. If you just wear this, you'll be more protected. And it's like fire insurance, like tithing, like things where just do it, don't think about it. But it can cause a lot of self-image problems, let's put it that way. Or maybe if you guys want to get into the whole two young married folks in the Mormon church finally getting to have a radical time in the bedroom, and it's just instant deflation of sex drive for a lot of people, where it's just, I'm gonna have to go change into something sexier, and be that's the whole rigmarole. I don't feel sexy, you don't look sexy, let's go to bed. I personally didn't experience that, but that's what I've heard.
I was also told that it was common Mormon orthodoxy to have conjugal relations with your garments on.
Tops on?
Well, either I guess with women you couldn't do it with the bottoms on, right?
No.
Okay. So maybe, is that a wives' tale?
It has to be. That's like people saying that people do it through a hole in the sheet. I think that's a little intense.
All right. Well, we don't mean to get X-rated here. Really quickly,
we're not,
thanks to Waldo for the super chat. Again, thanks to Mr. Midwife and to Phil Quinn from New Zealand. This is fun. We've got people from Brazil and New Zealand, Carah. Also, Brooklyn. Brooklyn writes, Did you ever perceive your spirit to be a true, separate version of yourself that you were hurting when you sinned, whatever sin is? Wow, that's intense, Brooklyn. So I'm just trying to think about that. So when I made a mistake, let's say I swore or stole something, did I ever feel like my carnal man was injuring my spiritual self? Carah.
Am I crazy? I feel like that is what it is, the entire idea of what sin is.
But it's almost like she's saying that there's it's a split personality. There's like a Medusa, like a conjoined twin, where your body has its own choice and identity and decision-making ability. And then there's your spirit that's like a victim. Isn't it the spirit? In my theology of Mormonism, it's the spirit making the decision. The body is like a glove that just is inanimate, but it's fitting over the spirit, which is the decision maker. So the idea of the body hurting the spirit, that never occurred to me. Theologically, it was the spirit making all the decisions. What was it for you?
Yeah, the spirit making the decision, especially when you think, I thought in terms of that Satan is all around and trying to entice me. And that is like demonic possession. And that comes from like a spiritual possession is kind of how I viewed things. That it's, I'm going to physically like put alcohol in my body, glug, glug, glug. But that's going to have a spiritual consequence on how I'm able to feel, God guiding me from this point forward and feel his protection is how I would have put it.
Did you just say glug, glug, glug?
Yep. John's never drank alcohol. He doesn't know what it sounds like. You guys in the comments, that's how it sounds.
All right. Hey, Carah, I have some breaking news. You weren't expecting this, but are you ready for some breaking news?
You're drunk right now.
Nope. I've never tried alcohol or cannabis.
Okay. What's your breaking news?
I left Carah speechless. Okay. This is fun. I hope y'all are enjoying this live stream. Please keep your Q&As coming. Super chats get priority. But we'll take any questions or comments. So, Carah, I had someone call me today. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. So this is an inside source, somebody who works somewhere in church headquarters who would know. Okay. And I verified who this person is. They told me that John Reyes tomorrow was going to be announcing that he is running for re-election as Attorney General. Ooh. And that he was going to be giving an exclusive. And for those of you who don't know, John Reyes is the Attorney General in Utah, who, I think was recently relatively well rated for a while. But then he sort of teamed up with Tim Ballard, the former CEO of Operation Underground Railroad. And this was an organization dedicated to trying to allegedly rescue kids from child sex trafficking. In the past several years, it's been under a cloud for fraud, for abuse of women, lots of horrible stuff. And eventually, recently Tim Ballard went down. Well, John Reyes had sort of tied his identity to Tim Ballard. They were besties. And now both Ballard and Reyes are the subject of several lawsuits where abuse happened or allegedly happened. So a lot of us thought Tim was going to bow out, but this insider source told me tomorrow is the day.
And Sean?
Did I say Tim? Thank you. Sean, thank you. Sean was going to bow out and not run for re-election because Tim was supposed to run for Senate, and then he has not followed through on that, right? Mm-mm. Now, would you, if I had asked you this cold, if I had said, Carah Burrell, will Utah Attorney General John Reyes run for re-election, what would you have guessed?
I would have guessed yes, because I think that he's like a narcissist maniac and thinks that he can do whatever he wants. But I am still surprised though, especially because I've been following Tim Ballard stuff on my channel, and one of my major kind of inside sources that I will be releasing some different things as time goes on about John Reyes and Tim Ballard and OUR. That's kind of an insider who knows a lot about John Reyes's issues and problems that could thankfully, I have this source that I have access to a lot of these documents that hopefully will expose what a creep. And I honestly had to take a day off of work just to like really sulk and cry after reading some of these documents about what a terrible politician is that Sean Reyes is. And one of the most just evil, maniacal narcissist I've ever seen, doing just some of the most horrendous things, and seeing if I even wanted to cover this stuff because Sean Reyes could potentially come after me. So I think Sean Reyes is as sick of a politician as it gets. And
I don't know if you know this. I was audited by Sean Reyes in the Attorney General's office a year or two ago. I didn't make a big...
What a sick freak.
I didn't make a big deal about it, and I have no idea whether he had anything to do with that. But they did audit the Open Stories Foundation, and we complied, and their finding was that they found no wrongdoing. But because I had spoken out publicly about Sean Reyes through interviewing Lynn Packer, I wondered whether I was being targeted. But okay, so as of today, I was anticipating Sean Reyes announcing that he was running for re-election. Did I say Tim Ballard again or Sean Reyes? Okay. Well, now I'm getting another super credible source saying the following, that Reyes is making an announcement tomorrow, but it's to say he's not running for re-election. So I'm literally getting conflicting reports, both from people I would trust 100%. So the only thing I can think of is he's changed his mind just in the past 12 to 24 hours. But this new report says he's making an announcement that he's not running. He released an internal poll suggesting he would beat anyone if he were to run for the Attorney General position, because he doesn't want people thinking that he's not going to run for re-election because he'd lose. And then the other things I'm hearing is that he's trying to enlist Trump to do a statement as a send-off, that it's not confirmed whether Trump's going to do that, and that he's going to really try hard to convince Utah that there are lots of reasons why he's not going to run, but none of them have to do with the lawsuits or OUR or anything bad that he's done. So that's interesting. The only other thing I think I would want to say is that, I mean, we'll see tomorrow, but, if he were to seek re-election as a way to save himself, that would be a really interesting Utah parallel to what it appears like Donald Trump is doing nationally. But also, did you know that Sean Reyes traveled during the whole question of stop the steal, post-election, Biden is declared a winner, Trump's really mad. Did you know that Reyes traveled to, I believe, Nevada? It was either Arizona or Nevada. You know how, like, it's reported that Trump or his people sent false electors to places like Georgia and Michigan to represent themselves as the Electoral College? Like that, those level of shenanigans. As I understand it, during the post-election, Sean Reyes traveled to either Nevada or Arizona to do that type of shenanigan work. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. Carah, what are your thoughts?
I haven't heard that specifically, that he was part of the fake elector scheme.
Or sort of like stop the steal. You know what I mean? Challenge the voting counts, or challenge, to do anything that could be done in the places only where Trump was losing, by the way, to keep Trump from losing a state. And by the way, we're nonpartisan on Mormon Stories. We don't take a position politically. I hate it when people talk about partisan politics, but we're talking about Sean Reyes. Anything else you want to say about Sean?
I could be here all day talking about Sean Reyes. I have a closet of his skeletons that I can't wait to bust open in the next couple months.
Oh, you've got more coming.
Oh, I have so much coming. You have no idea.
I mean, one person said that he's dumb to run because there's so much that's about to come out about him.
Right.
That it's going to be like a magnet to negativity and adversity.
If he does run, it'll be great for my YouTube channel, because it'll just be like, here's what an insane fraud Sean Reyes is 24/7. And I think it just goes back to, we're trying to be nonpartisan, but at the same time, so much of Utah politics operates like a theocracy. Or you could just say that people can parade around their families like Sean Reyes does and like, look at my 5 kids that are always sitting here in front and center while he obviously has a mistress on the side that people see him with. So it's this annoying game where people are able to act like they're one of the good old boys when they act nothing like it. And as we can tell with OUR, nothing about Sean Reyes's attorney generaling was actually for the betterment of the state of Utah. It was to fill his own pockets. It was for his own
Carah,
self-aggrandizement.
you're being kind of extreme. You're saying nothing good. He did nothing good. It was all selfish. That's a little.
Okay,
I'm speaking
in a little extremes, but the amount of which that he has spent his time on his own pet projects, going against political enemies and the like, and.
You're not a fan. Carah's not a fan.
I'm not a fan.
All right, we've got here that Unitarian says that the G in the Masonic symbol stands for geometry. That makes sense, actually, and sometimes defined as God or the great architect. Wow, that Trinitarian, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing your Masonic wisdom with us, because we don't have that between Carah and I. All right, we've got other comments. So Carah, Wolf writes, I had quit the church at 18 when I graduated.
Hard quit.
Thank you. I hard quit the church at 18 when I graduated high school and moved away from home. I'm 33 now and just recently started digesting my experiences. Thank you for your work. You know what we call those people, Carah?
Late in life deconstructors.
No, we call them Jack Mormons, right? It's when you leave the church and aren't obeying the commandments, but you really never lost your belief or processed your disbelief.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of one of the worst states to be in as a Mormon, because you're sinning and you're racked with eternal torment because you haven't stopped believing that things that probably aren't bad are sinful.
Yeah, I have a different take from that. I have a friend right now who hasn't been in my life for a while, who's come back in me and my husband's life. And I noticed that when you don't deconstruct and you kind of just live how you want, you still carry on a lot of, I'm not going to say anything bad about him. I love this guy. But sometimes there's still some problematic things that you don't deconstruct from Mormonism, because it's not just one thing where you're like, oh, okay, I understand now that what I was taught about Joseph Smith and the golden plates and this being a literal scripture from God and so forth, those things aren't true. You can have more nuanced belief about that, but then sometimes I feel like people, you really got to go hard into a full-on deconstruction of like, well, what else wasn't true? What about like, men and women's roles that were true? What about like LGBTQ rights and things? There's so many things that one can kind of lead into another, and you don't realize so much of what you were taught was all to uphold this idea about the church. And you can nuance your literal beliefs in the church, but you also have to be like, what else wasn't there? And so sometimes I just think that leads to a lot of judgment in people, where it's like, I'm not like that. I don't believe it literally, but you gotta kind of have to peel back the layers and really be like, well, do the shadow work. Be like, who am I? What did I grow up believing would give me love that now is actually kind of a stopgap between me and actually understanding people and loving them? That's what I kind of had to do. It's an ongoing, lifelong journey. That's what I have to say.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Carah. We have some other questions or super chats that came in. Thanks to Brad. Is that Brad X? Thanks to Brad Boyd X for the super chat. Cynthia writes, I knew Kim Clark and Steve Wheelwright when I was at Harvard Business School. I was at their homes for student events, etc. Any tea? I have no tea on Kim Clark or Steve Wheelwright. Do you know who those people are? I'm sorry, Cynthia. Thanks for the question. Do you know who those people are, Carah?
Nope.
Okay. Sorry, Cynthia, but we're glad you asked. And if you went to HBS, we want you on Mormon Stories, just because I think that pretty much guarantees you're going to be interesting. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Terry Mocha Newton asks, I was wondering, after your experience with the Mormon Church, your deep education in religious texts, where has that left you spiritually? Oh, all right. Thanks, Terry, for that question. So where am I spiritually? And then, Carah, I think you'll need to answer this question too. But
Yeah, I'm excited. This is a good one.
so for me, this will not be satisfactory to traditional religious people or Christians, I think. I no longer, so if you look at this term spirituality as I thought of it when I was Mormon, literally spirit meant we have spirits like Casper the Friendly Ghosts inside of us, and we can, like, our spirits talk to each other. Our spirits came from Heavenly Father in heaven. Our spirits go back to Heavenly Father in heaven. Even in Mormonism, like animals have spirits, the earth has a spirit, and all these spirits can communicate without, even bodies and voices and vocal cords and tongues. And the Holy Ghost is a spirit that can come in us and come out of us. If that's the definition of spirituality, I don't identify as agnostic, but I think everyone's an agnostic in the sense that nobody knows whether this metaphysical reality really exists. I think that the best that we know is that we have feelings, and that because we're taught this metaphysical spiritual worldview, we interpret our feelings as being spiritual communication, spirit inside of us, spirituality that comes from a speaker, when really, in my view, the only thing we know for sure is that it's chemicals and neuro firings. So I no longer understand, and thus no longer find value in that literal interpretation of spirituality. Now, it's not that I'm atheist. I don't identify as atheist. I don't even identify as agnostic. And I don't actively disbelieve in a spiritual, metaphysical, reality. It's not like I'm like an antichrist running around saying none of it's true. I literally just say, no one was ever able to explain to me the difference between my feelings and the Holy Ghost. They're like, oh, when you feel the Holy Ghost, you really know. And then you think about it, it's like, well, the dudes who flew the planes in the Twin Towers, they knew their feelings, the Spirit really told them what was true, but we don't validate their spiritual prompting. So nobody can tell me the difference between feelings and the Holy Ghost. So it's not that I deny it. It's just that I say I don't think anybody knows. So that's half of how I would talk about spirituality. The other half is I have reconstructed what spirituality means to me. And for me, spirituality has been redefined as connection to something bigger than myself. So if Carah and I are having a heart-to-heart and we both feel emotionally connected to each other, I think that's okay to call that a spiritual connection, in the sense that I'm connected to someone else and having a positive connection. If we're all singing and I feel electricity, I'm fine calling that a spiritual experience, because it's a group larger than me having an emotional experience that's resonant or vibrant. When I go on a walk in nature and I'm seeing the birds and the trees and I'm connecting with the sun and the warmth and the wind and the clouds, I feel connected to the earth and our planet. And in that sense, it's spirituality for me. And as I'm on this podcast, we've got this amazing community. We have awesome co-hosts like Carah Burrell. We have guests who come. We're all working together to try and find meaning and purpose and healing and growth and identity. I get tremendous feelings of uplift, of satisfaction, of elevation, emotion. And I call that spirituality, but it's not in the way that I used to think about it. So that's probably a really long answer, but that's what you get when you do a super chat. You get a really long answer. So Carah, do you want to answer that same question?
Just basically where we've landed spiritually wise.
You, not we. Is there a mouse in your pocket?
Me. That's actually ironic, because most of my spirituality has to do with like an interconnectedness between all living and non-living objects, basically. I would say my Christianity was really at the forefront of my Mormonism. And I still have all of those same types of things that are still alive. So I went into deconstructing Mormonism straight into deconstructing Christianity and realizing that I couldn't believe in the Bible, and that the things, though, about what I would call Christ consciousness that are still very ubiquitous amongst some of, all of the best teachers is what I'm always trying to tap into, which is what I felt like makes some of the best Christians, religious people. You can call it whatever you want. I think that we are the universe basically having an experience right now. Like, we can know only a few basic things for sure, that we live in this type of space with this universe, and that there's energy that's given and taken around. And what do you call these things? Well, our English language is going to be that finite vessel. We're not always going to be able to explain things. But I think what I'm so passionate about deconstructing Mormonism and different very high demand religions is when they want to take away your ability to tap into something that should be so ubiquitous and use it for its own purposes, and that's so nefarious. And so moving away from cult-like mindsets into a more freeing, intuitive one that lets you live out that type of Christ consciousness, meaning an understanding that we're all one, we're all on one planet, we all share a type of divinity because we have the ability to notice things and rise in our awareness and care for others and love and be loved. And through all of that, we're going to be interacting with other people's egos and our egos. And I think generally I would call myself a type of agnostic mystic. I move away from the atheist thing. I don't say that I know anything at all, but just generally the frameworks that I use now are still tapping into the things that made me the absolute happiest when I was a Mormon and a Christian. And it's trying to look where I can do better, where I can serve better, where is my ego showing up versus where am I actually being the best just person who is here to serve and do what needs to be done without trying to get some kind of acclaim for it, And spirituality comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, generally speaking. But I think if you just put love at the forefront, you can't go wrong with that. So I could get long and hippy dippy into all of this, but
all you need is love.
Yeah.
Wah, 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 wah. Oh,
yeah.
You don't know that song.
Of course I know that song. You think I don't know the Beatles?
Imagine there's no heaven.
Yep.
It's easy if you try.
Keep going, John. It's fine.
We're getting a lot of comments about my beard. In fact, somebody wrote, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be offended by this, John needs some oleo skin and beard oil for his distinguished beard. That's from Beck. Now, what is Beck saying? Is Beck saying my skin is dry? Is Beck saying my beard is mangy? Carah, can you help clean me up here a little bit or something? What's going on?
I walked in and I said, John, you look fabulous. I got no problems.
The young factor wrote, bearded John DeLynn can't hurt you. He's not real. So bearded, the young factor is saying I'm not real.
All right, get to the questions.
Why? You're not having fun? I thought you were having fun.
I am having fun.
You're getting all serious. I'm trying to have fun.
I know. I'm just
where did fun, Carah, go?
Well,
by the way, you just rambled about spirituality for 10 minutes.
I did?
And you never mentioned mushrooms. Not one time.
I thought that you were trying to be I thought you were.
You should have. I should have said, Carah, blah, 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 spirituality. And then you gave one word.
Yeah.
Q.
Carah's into psychedelics.
Mushrooms.
And
this is not an endorsement.
I didn't know. You always told me not to talk about it.
Okay. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I was trying to be good.
I'm just giving you a hard time. Okay. We have more super chats, so I'm gonna keep playing them. Kimberly Brundell writes, I only thought I could get love from my parents by being a good Mormon girl. Now that my brother and father have passed away, I feel like the comic book and Netflix version of Lucifer based on the show is more accurate. Now, I feel really bad. I've never seen Netflix Lucifer. So, Carah, do you have any idea what Kimberly's saying?
No, I only watch TikTok.
Context clues? Can you figure it out?
Can you keep it back on screen? Hold on.
Now that my brother and father passed away, I feel like the comic book and Netflix version of Lucifer based on the show. So she's saying, I only thought I could get love from my parents by being a good Mormon girl. I guess she's learning that she can get love through other ways, not through obedience. Is that what she's saying? I feel bad because this is a really heartfelt, thoughtful question. And we don't know the cultural reference. That's your job, by the way.
Sorry, I have nothing but Tim Ballard, Sean Reyes stuff bouncing around in here.
All right. Well, I'm gonna ask everyone to help us understand her question because it's a good one. I'm going to go to some other super chats and then we'll come back to it. BD writes, Dr. DeLynn, after gathering 1,800 podcast episodes worth of evidences, do you look at your excommunication as a badge of honor now? Wow, that's a good question. Thank you, BD, for that question. I don't mean to be flippant and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I would say outside of my family and my marriage and my kids and Mormon stories, I think my excommunication is one of the things I'm most proud of. I'm more proud of my excommunication than my PhD. Here's why. In the 2020s, if you're excommunicated for apostasy, more often than not, unless you're like Denver Snuffer fundamentalist type Mormon, if you're excommunicated, let's go through the people who are excommunicated for apostasy. Pop quiz, Cara Burrell, get on your mic.
Okay.
You tell us why this person was excommunicated. Natasha Helfer, why?
Sharing information, like reputable, fact-based information about sexuality, masturbation, and affirming gay marriage while being LDS therapist.
Okay, Bill Reel.
Being a bishop with a podcast. Did he have his podcast yet? Asking too many questions, sharing truth.
Yeah, sharing factual history.
Yeah.
Talking about truth claims, being honest, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jeremy Runnels. Why was he excommunicated?
Publishing the CS letter that has a bunch of historical problems with the church's truth claims.
Sam Young. Why was Sam Young excommunicated? We already talked about this, but for those who joined late.
I mean, fundamentally, like criticizing the way that the church allows sex abuse to go on without any kind of stops and things that would prevent that, like bishops' interviews and calling attention to it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Lori Lee Hall. You probably don't know Lori Lee. Lori Lee was like the chief architect for the Mormon church for like 30 years, constructed like most of the church's biggest temples and important buildings. Lori Lee Hall transitioned to female after a lifetime of presenting as a male and was excommunicated for simply choosing to transition to the gender that she felt most comfortable presenting as. Like, pick somebody excommunicated for apostasy in the past 10, 20 years. If they're on the progressive side, they were on the side of truth and health and science and positivity. So in that sense, why was I excommunicated? I was excommunicated for talking about factual Mormon history on the podcast and not taking it down when asked, advocating for same-sex marriage, which is not only legal now, but it's known to be healthy, advocating for increased women's rights, advocating against racism, and trying to fight to prevent mixed faith marriage divorces, to prevent depression and anxiety and suicide, and all the negative externalities of Mormonism. And frankly, I was excommunicated for trying to improve the Mormon church, to try and make it healthier and a safer,
You had a whole
and a better
platform
place.
of like stay LDS too, of how to still understand these things that we thought were exactly true, taught by the church, and how to still make it work within the church. So I think John is always like reining me in, where I'm like, isn't this just the way that we talk about things? And John's like, let's talk about it more nuanced, ho. And John's a better nuanced ho than me. So John puts out the information more than anybody else sometimes, though, and has for a long time.
Well, I'm proud to be excommunicated for apostasy, given the circumstances of why I was excommunicated. I mean no disrespect to those who are members. Really quickly, thanks to Krissa Okamura for their support. We have a non-religion related question, Cara. I don't even know. It seems like you don't even do or think anything that isn't just purely Mormon, Cara, or Tim Ballard or Sean Reyes. But Tipthorn asks, what would be your ultimate dream vacation? I'm going to have you take this one first, Carah.
I've never really left the country. Grew up too
You
poor
can
to even
vacation
think
in
about
the
these
United
things.
States. Come on.
No, you go first. I can't think of anything. I don't
I've actually traveled to a few dozen countries. So Canada, Mexico, Guatemala, Austria, England, France, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland. Did I already say Austria? Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia, China, India. I've been to a lot of places. So I think New Zealand would be a blast. I hear New Zealand is amazing. See all the Lord of the Rings stuff. I hear it's just beautiful. I want to meet Jacinda Ardern, the ex-Mormon former prime minister. The beaches I hear could be amazing. So I think New Zealand would be a top choice. I have been to Italy, but I've never been to southern Italy. So I think kind of a Mediterranean cruise, like, whatever the Greece, Italy, whatever the Mediterranean countries are, French, Mediterranean. Seems like that would be really delightful. I've never really spent a lot of time in the Nordic countries like Denmark. I've been to Sweden, but I've never like spent a lot of casual time in places like Denmark or Norway. I would love to just hang with the people there and get to know them better. Those are some that come to mind for me. Did I stall long enough for you to go?
All
And
right,
I've never
I
been to
got mine
South
now.
America. I totally want to go to Brazil, Argentina, Chile. A lot of South American countries would be a blast.
All right, I got mine.
Okay, go.
India. Did my world report in 6th grade on India. India's always been in my heart for that one. And I
Can I say India's crazy?
I believe that it would be like, I'd have to go
Imagine you're driving and there's like 10,000 cars and just cows walking in the middle of the road. And then they just stop and wait for the cow. And then 10,000 cars go by and a gazillion people.
I would do like the real, like, take me through like a touristy, no, just kidding. Just, I like, there's just different cultures that I'd want to experience. And Indian culture, I think, is always just really interesting and fascinating, and Hindu culture and stuff. And I love caves. I've always had a big interest in like going cave exploring. So anywhere in the country, I know Vietnam has amazing caves, or like Croatia. Those are like my top ones where I was like, just want to go. I want to go on adventures. That's what I'm thinking. Less about the country, more about the adventure.
I'm told that Radio Free Mormon has joined us. Radio Free Mormon, I'm posting the StreamYard link right now in the comment section, and Radio Free Mormon, I'm going to text it to you, because RFM, if you want to join me and Carah on the live stream, I think there's just there are two general laws of the universe, Carah. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you know the two laws, but one is more cowbell. Mm-hmm. And what's the other rule?
More Radio Free Mormon.
More Radio Free Mormon. So Radio Free Mormon, if that's really you, if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. We have another question coming in. Brett Nordquist, thanks for the super chat. Brett writes, years from now, will people look back and credit the internet and everything that it's enabled, podcasts, social media, blogs, with doing the most damage to the growth of the Mormon Church? Carah, do you have an answer to that?
Of course.
And
of course.
The answer is?
Absolutely, yes. And John DeLynn and Nuanso, again, these YouTube channels are just competing. Yeah, of course. Nothing will ever be the same since the internet was invented. And didn't Elder Ballard say once that God helped invent the internet to help spread the gospel of the Mormon Church? And that didn't quite happen like they thought it would. But there's nothing like Jeremy Reynolds and Mormon stories and people being able to get out information that sometimes you'd have to spend hours and years being your own little historian trying to put together information. But now it's so accessible and people are able to at least have the informed consent, as we like to talk about, of where they're going to spend their time, what the church history is that's normally hidden. So it's a total game changer.
Yeah, I'd say same thing. It's like the printing press, but exponentially, 3 orders of magnitude more significant. And the church will never be the same. And the church is literally, in my view, the Mormon Church is in free fall Not in Africa. It's growing in Africa, but frankly, because I think a lack of education, because of significant poverty, and a lack of informed consent. So the church will be able to hide its decline through certain developing countries like the Philippines, like parts of South America, and like Africa. But yeah, the church is being gutted. It's being devastated and ravished by the internet, and it's just going to get worse. So that's my answer. I don't know how profound or interesting it is. Cynthia writes, sorry for the clarity. Wheelwright was president of BYU Idaho, and I don't have information on him, Cynthia. I apologize. And then, yeah, Clark was the general authority of the LDS after 15 years of president of BYU. I think Clark is on the short list for apostle, from what I understand, but I don't know if he's 70 yet. But Cynthia, I unfortunately don't have a skinny on Clark other than he is a mover and a shaker. So, yeah. A couple other comments and questions. The Young Factor writes, John, it was your episode with Radio Free Mormon and Dr. Rittner on Book of Abraham that broke my shelf. I watched all of it 3 times. Thank you for all you do. Keep going, RFM. Rittner and John have all changed my life. Carah, apparently you haven't changed the Young Factor's life. I just wanted to note that.
The podcast is still young.
So you're not vanquished. No.
I literally told John when I walking into Mormon Stories, I know everybody, not everybody, most people are pretty nice. And they're like, Carah, we love you when you were on Mormon Stories. Obviously, some people are like, we're glad she left. And I'm like, I'm with you. I'm not always perfect, but I did walk in here today and I was like, when I look around this room, I just have like a lot of Carah, you absolute moron memories here of like just so many things that I was like, I could have done better at that and better at that. So I'm probably not doing very good right now.
People loved you on the show and they love it when you're on.
Because I was telling John that I was like, people don't understand. I was like, I'm a mom of 3 young kids. I just left the church as well. I just so happened to make some funny TikToks and John's like, hey, come co-host with me. And I'm like, yeah, I generally feel like I can talk adequately okay sometimes. But really, out of the frying pan in the fry, baptism by fire, all of that stuff.
Oh,
working on it.
I'm glad you're here. All right. Immortal Serpa writes, was Fawn Brody excommunicated long while back? But yes, Immortal Serpa, Fawn Brody was excommunicated somewhere between like 1945 and 1948-ish. She was the niece of David O. McKay, who was prophet and president of the church at the time. She published the book No Man Knows My History, which to this date is by far the best biography ever written on Joseph Smith. And again, what happens when you do something really valuable for the Mormon people, Carah Burrell?
You get excommunicated.
That's right. And that's what happened
Bum.
to Fawn Brody. Radio Free Mormon writes, who is the woman speaking? That's Radio Free Mormon. Carah?
Who is the woman speaking?
Yeah. That's
Radio Free Mormon,
RFM
who calls me every other week, doesn't know my name.
Do you ever just get like a random call from RFM in the middle of the day?
I will get out of the shower to answer calls from RFM. We have a great time talking.
Hey, the Young Factor says we love Carah, so
thank you.
It's not all bad.
I love that I'm in with the Young Factor. I got a question. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
All right, this is going to be a really useful one. People ask this all the time. John, just absolute, as fast as you can, what are a couple of the hallmarks, the keys that people need to remember? What would you say to people who want to know how to interact with believing Mormon family this coming holiday season? What are some typical things you always need to keep in mind?
Okay, so I've been reading. Carah, can I blow your mind? Carah, if you had to list my 3 most important books, not Mormon books, but just books about the world or psychology or about relationships or whatever, if you had to name the 3 books that I cite most or quote most or refer people to most when it comes to faith crisis, what would the books be? Or processing deconstruction. Do you have any idea? Any idea? Ever? Any of them? Can you name one?
But it's been a while. I know them.
You learned nothing.
Give me
You learned
clues.
nothing from me.
Give me
you
some
didn't
clues.
learn a thing. How long did you work with us?
A year. And
You
a
learned
half.
nothing.
I know.
No, I'm just kidding, Carah. You're awesome.
I know. I
Okay.
know them though.
As soon as I say it, you're going to remember. So one is The Demon Haunted World.
Never heard of it.
Okay, so Carl Sagan wrote a book called The Demon Haunted World. It's all about why people are religious. Literally, pause this episode or open a new tab, go to Amazon, order The Demon Haunted World, either in print format or an audiobook. I swear to you, you'll never be the same. Demon Haunted World. The second is by Jonathan Haidt. Carah, do you remember that book?
I knew it was a Jonathan Haidt book.
Damn it. Okay, the second is The Righteous Mind. Now, do you remember?
Yep.
So The Righteous Mind is a super important book. Carah, there's a new book. Not that the other books that I've ever talked to you about matter in any way. Not that you will remember anything that I'm about to say. But there's a new book that you're going to forget. Are you ready?
I'd love to.
The new book is called, and now I'm forgetting the name of the book. It's called How Minds Change by David McCraney.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of the podcast You're Not So Smart?
Yeah.
You have not.
Yeah.
So
There's
the
a lot of
podcast You're
podcasts
Not
out
So
there that-
Smart is where we all learn the term the backfire effect, because the backfire effect, Carah, this is your last chance. And, and I'm
great.
just going to have you leave the show if you can't answer this. Carah, what is the backfire effect? Go.
The backfire effect is when you think that you are just presenting somebody with some factual information, but you could call it the ego or whatever within somebody, they are not interested in actually hearing new information that would change their point of view, and it actually does the opposite thing, and it makes them double down and have an even stronger belief in that thing that you were trying to give them evidence to talk them out of.
You get to stay. You get to stay on the show tonight.
Thanks.
No, that was good. Thank you. Very good. Okay. So what is How Minds Change about? It's basically just about why people, not only why people believe what they believe, and most beliefs are socially constructed. In other words, for most of us, we get our beliefs from our parents, from our families, from our immediate communities, and yes, from our churches. But we also, they're socially constructed. So the second thing this book is about is how to change people's minds. And there's an entire chapter on one of your heroes who we interviewed in this very studio, who's an expert at question asking. Another pop quiz for Carah. Who did we bring in the studio who's one of your heroes to interview who's never been Mormon?
Anthony Magnabosco.
That's right. So Dave McCraney has an entire chapter on Anthony Magnabosco. What would you say Anthony Magnabosco is all about?
Street epistemology. He is a YouTuber, atheist, and basically goes out and interviews people on the street and asks them what is, a firmly held belief, and can I kind of ask you some probing questions about how you arrived at believing this is literal and very true. And he does it in a very smart and respectful manner, and he kind of helped forward this entire movement of street epistemology.
Yeah, it's basically Socratic method, right?
Yeah.
You just ask people not just what they believe, but you ask them what they base their beliefs on, and you see if you can get them to be willing to analyze the reasons and to even critique the reasons for why they believe things. Mm-hmm. And if you can get them to let go of a debate around the content of their beliefs, but get them to think about how good their reasoning is for why they believe what they believe, that's your best chance of getting them to look at other points of view. Now, after saying all that, none of that answers your question, Carah, because you asked what to do at Christmas time when you're with family. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that what you asked?
You're all gathered around. Your mom wants to read the story of the baby Jesus, and all everyone's thinking is how you left the church and you're a big disappointment, and it's all awkward. And you just sit there, you keep believing and pretending that you believe with other people, and eventually some awkward conversation is going to come up where, we're not going to all be in heaven together again. And it's just awkward, and you just don't know if you should argue with them and be like, I believe this, just leave me alone. I don't like that you guys believe in this. It can just lead into a whole mayhem of Christmas tables getting flipped over.
Yeah, I recommend don't take the bait. Don't talk about religion with family. Don't talk about anything that's going to be contentious. Just talk about common interests that make you happy.
What if your family member really comes at you though, and they're like, well, what I really want for Christmas is
Are we role playing here?
I'm just telling you what I deal with on a daily basis.
Okay, so you're my sister. You're my believing sister. Come at me. It's Christmas time. We're sitting around the fire. We just opened our stockings.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting for the cinnamon rolls that Mom's cooking. Come at me, believing Mormon sister.
Well, I hope that this is not going to be sold for your drug and alcohol money now that you left the church. No, just kidding. I think it's sometimes it just starts with like this awkward. I've noticed that are you doing okay? Are you doing okay, John? As I've noticed that I just don't feel like you're really doing that well. You've got looks like a depression beard going on right now, and it just looks like.
Does any Mormon ever say this at Christmas time? Come on.
No, I'm dead serious. Like this addressing of like this elephant in the room, where that somebody has left the church and you need to address it and be like, doesn't look like you're doing so well. Do you feel like what's your status with the church? What do you believe now? Just kind of grilling people of like, answer me on why. People, like we were talking about, they have these deeply held beliefs, and if you don't believe the same thing that they do, and they know that, they kind of want to.
You're saying a believing Mormon is going to go, you're looking really dark these days. Are you okay?
Have you been to my house? I'm like, that literally happens all the time. I'm like, literally can be living my best life.
Okay, then I'll go with it.
And
No,
family is just,
I'm sorry. I'll go with
people,
it.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm cool-splaining your family, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all love, but people are worried. They're worried about you, John.
Okay, let's start over. So go ahead. Snap. Take two. Carah, believing Mormon, insults John at Christmas. Take two. Go.
John, we're worried about you. Are you thinking about coming back to church? Where are you at with your spirituality? Can you let us know if you're doing okay?
Why are you worried?
I mean, that we believe in the church and that there's Christ is the Messiah, and he's the one way to happiness. And I can tell that you're not doing so well financially. Look at the gifts you got us. So
come on. Is there anyone out there that has ever had this conversation?
John, you've just been out of the loop for so long.
Have Mormons gotten this bad? Like, I have believing family members. It'd be like, John, how's it going? How's work? Are you doing okay? How's the
that's
family?
because they already know where you're at. Because you run Mormon stories for 17 years. I'm talking about the new Mormons.
19 years. What are you talking about? 17.
I've been waiting for you to say the thing we've been dancing around for 10 minutes. It's basically when somebody asks you, about your belief in the church, and that you can just say to them, for me, I don't align with it. I don't believe it. I want to hear from you and your history, what you would say. What is the good sentence to just kind of put the period in that topic for people?
Something like, hey man, I really appreciate that you care about me. Or, hey, I think it's awesome that you are wanting to talk religion during Christmas. That makes all the sense in the world. How would you feel, Carah, if we just talked about stuff that made us both happy and that just wouldn't give us any risk of having any sort of tension? Because I really value our relationship. I really value the family getting along. And I'd be willing to talk about this stuff privately some other time, but what if we didn't talk? What if we talked about like sports or like the weather or news or your family? How would that feel?
Feels like you just don't want to address that you're dragging so many people down to hell. But
all right, this role play failed, but it was fun to try. Kimberly Brundell writes, Lucifer is a fallen protagonist who falls in love. Oh, Kimberly is explaining, she's upped her super chat, by the way, and she's explaining the Lucifer Netflix show. Lucifer is a fallen protagonist who falls in love. Then you have a fallible God who loves his son, but casts him out for personal growth. I think life is more about personal growth than righteousness. That makes more sense than Mormon, God, and devil. Holy moly. So, Kimberly, you asked us these questions, but you clearly are the wise one, and you've thought about that. And I think that's true. I think life is about experiences and healing and growth. It's not about perfectionism. It's not about obedience. It's about learning to choose healthy and edifying choices that bring the most happiness and well-being to yourself and others. And sometimes you learn by trial and error. I don't believe there's sin. I believe there's learning. And if you make decisions that harm yourself or harm others, that's not a sin that makes angels cry. That's an opportunity to get some feedback and to make better choices. And so, yeah, this model of like a clipboard note-taking God, looking at your mistakes and X's and O's, and then tallying up your little divots to decide if you get to live with him forever. If that person existed as a parent on the earth today, what would we call them, Carah?
Like an abusive parent?
Abusive, yeah, exactly. So, Kimberly, I think your analysis is much healthier. I am sorry you've had family pass away, but it sounds like you've kind of broken off the shackles of an unhealthy worldview and you're adopting a healthier one. Here's the question, Carah. The problem with leaving Mormonism is you can totally screw up your life. Like, for all the rules that you don't like in Mormonism, once you leave it, those rules have lasted centuries, growing a generally prosperous people. And if you just carelessly throw off a lot of the structure and a lot of those rules, you can literally blow up your life, your marriage, yourself, your family, your kids. You could do a lot of damage. And what do you think about that? Is that true?
John
Not true?
is absolutely baiting me right now.
I would never.
Oh my gosh, I hate you.
I would never do that.
John's like, I have never done any drugs or any alcohol or anything like that. Looks over at Carah. My marriage is perfect.
That is not what I was doing.
My life is structured and wonderful because I still obey most of the rules of Mormonism. How you doing over there, Carah?
That is not what I was doing.
I actually, I agree on a lot of those things. Like, it depends on kind of personality type, right? And like, when I was 19, I worked at a summer camp and I was planning on being a Mormon for the summer, and then I wasn't Mormon for the summer. It's very easy to get into a group of friends who, just want to push the envelope and have different experiences, and life is, a fun ride. But ultimately, what I thought the church, when I came back to the church after that summer, and I thought that because the people that I was partying with were not very good friends, I thought that meant that the church was true, and God was like, now you see that these rules are here for a reason. And I had to come in my lifelong journey. I was in the church for the last 10 years, but now I'm back arriving at the place of like, you have to be able, like we were talking about the spirituality, is you have to be able to kind of find this intuition within yourself that's not always going to come from the outside in. It's going to have to come from the inside out, of what you actually do believe about what is good to put in your body, what makes you feel good, how you treat people. And yeah, there's structures that can tell you those things, and you can just be like, I did this, this, and this, and this. But that's the Christ consciousness that I think is beautiful. That's like actually, rising in your consciousness to be aware of how your body and your spirit and how you interact with the world. And that has to do with substances and a whole host of different things people could call sins, and being intentional about things. So it's a journey. It's a journey.
All right, couple more things. Inns writes, popcorn populating on my apricot spot. I don't know exactly what they mean, but it sounds like a compliment.
It's from $50. I will say that's the best comment I ever heard. It makes perfect sense.
Reiner writes, thanks for all you do. I can't watch all the previous content fast enough. I just discovered Mormon stories a month ago. Reich, how have you been Mormon? How long have you been Mormon? How is it in the world that in 2023 you're just hearing about Mormon stories a month ago? No, I'm just kidding. We all say the bubble is real. We totally get why you're just learning about it now. Lopsided Leahona, did we already read this one? Okay. Lopsided Leahona writes, I'm a baby taper. I think that means they're new to questioning or doubting their beliefs. So I'm still working through reframing my spiritual experiences. But how do you reconcile those one or two life-changing experiences that you know weren't you / elevation emotion? That's a great question by Lopsided Leahona. Carah, I'm going to ask you first. Are there experiences that you interpreted as being like divine intervention, miracles, voices, spiritual experiences that to this day, not just they don't have an explanation for, because that could be secular. Things happen. Are there any that you literally believe had some type of supernatural grounding?
That I can point to that it's absolutely supernatural? No, but I had an entire podcast with Bill Reel a couple months ago on this subject, and we went into this exact idea of even if you've deconstructed and you don't believe in the truth claims of the church, you're like, wow, that really felt like God was using me on behalf of, this person to bring about this good, that I got a call in the middle of the night. Like Bill has stories like that how else did all of these things align in this perfect order to be able to help somebody, or things like that, that are just so supernatural. So it's one of those things I don't always know what to do with a lot of people's supernatural experiences. I lean more towards like believing that people and places and the really amazing things can happen. But generally speaking, for myself, no, I just have a lot of times where I felt very like impressed to do something and that I wouldn't have normally done, or somebody who just acted on what they thought was a spiritual prompting. And it was a great prompting, because how else would they have known that I needed help at that time? So that's what I go back to with like my spirituality, is just trying to be like interconnected and having like a knowing of how to, I could be selfish here. I could be thinking of myself, or how am I trying to think about others and what other people's needs are? And when you're kind of just clued into that, religious or not, I think you can do things that feel very supernatural and make us all feel more interconnected, and people aren't so alone. I think so much of religion and spirituality is just people, needing to feel justice, needing to feel like they're not so alone, needing to feel like they're taken care of, and acting on behalf of just your own conscience and acting on behalf of a maker. That's a whole other story, but just trying to show up for people is usually what I would say is those spiritual experiences of just beautiful things that sometimes they make you think the church is therefore true, but that A plus B equals C that math doesn't quite work out, but it means that people are generally like good and they're looking out for each other. That's my spiritual experiences.
Thank you. And I'm just trying to think about mine. Like people who follow Mormon stories will know that like I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover. I was promised that if I read the Book of Mormon cover to cover and prayed about it and I was worthy and I was sincere, I would get a spiritual manifestation testifying to me that the Book of Mormon was true, kind of Moroni's promise in 10:4. I did that multiple times, never got an answer, ever. Another time, I was told that if you go to the temple and you fast and you're super righteous, when you're doing baptisms for the dead in the temple, you can have a spiritual experience where you see the spirits of the people that you're getting baptized for. I did that. I followed the rules. I got baptized. I was worthy. I was fasting, and I didn't see any spirits. So like, and then I would be like, I'd drive down the road and I'd be like, okay, Holy Ghost, tell me whether to turn right or left. You know what I mean? And I'd go, oh, right. And I turned right, and then nothing would happen. And I'd be like, I think I'm just making stuff up. So I struggled with just this idea of spiritual confirmations. When people say, so-and-so happened to me and it was a miracle, so-and-so was sick and they got blessed and they were healed and I can't deny it. I'm not one to tell them that miracle didn't happen. But what I do know is that God never heals amputees. There's never, ever in all of history that's verifiable an instance of where a priesthood blessing was given, a Mormon priesthood blessing was given, and an amputee's limb grew back. And what I'm really saying there is anything that gets healed likely was not known enough about, such that if it was, they were diagnosed with cancer and then they were healed, well, maybe the cancer spontaneously went into remission, or maybe they got a bad diagnosis. We don't know for sure. What we do know for sure is that no amputee has ever been healed with the priesthood. it's always something where we really aren't for sure what happened. And it very well could have been a diagnostic error, a medical error, or a spontaneous remission, because sometimes the human body can heal. So the best I have for sort of like spiritual experiences that are like undeniable are like whenever there's a youth conference and like there'd be a testimony meeting, when someone was crying bearing their testimony, I would feel incredible emotion. Well, of course, I can't say that's an undeniable spiritual witness, because I'd say that was emotion now. You know what I mean? And back then I called it the Spirit, but I've thought about it for 10 seconds and realized, well, I was taught to interpret emotion when you're hearing a testimony as the Holy Ghost. So I can't keep those spiritual witnesses as compelling evidence for me in my current state. All those have been just sort of like recategorized as deeply meaningful emotional experiences of connection with people. Mm-hmm. The only other thing that I had once was during one general conference, I was really down, and all of a sudden, and you know that this was miraculous, Carah, because from like the point of general conference that I started feeling this way to the end of general conference, every single talk was edifying and spiritual. And I felt like I was literally on cocaine or meth or whatever. And I was on a spiritual high for like weeks after. And I write about this in my journal. And at the time, I interpreted that as some massive witness that the church was true. It also could have been a manic episode. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah. That's what people don't understand is like, you can be going through a lot and you will look for what your brain is kind of trying to find signs for, of God caring about you or like some direction or something. And then you grasp onto it and your entire brain just goes both feet full in and tells you that this is the way. And it will just kind of, double down your spiritual experiences one on top of the other until, you're like in this like manic spiritual episode. Just look at all the other religions and people having snake charmers and speaking in tongues. I'm sure they're having all kinds of spiritual experiences that are, true for them. But I just think so much of it comes down to you'll find what you're looking for if you're looking for it, if your brain, even if it's just subconscious.
I'm going to, as a disclaimer before I do my next bit, I'm just going to give a disclaimer that I'm in a silly mood and I'm interacting in a silly way with Carah, but I don't mean to be anything mean-spirited. I'm just kind of being silly. So with that, Carah, I'm going to have you read the next comment. Go.
I listen to John, and it makes me glad I left the church. I listen to Carah, and it makes me think about returning.
So that's Chowder.
Yeah.
Thanks for the super chat, Chowder. Do you want to translate that for us, Carah? Put your shit in your hat.
When John
and translate that.
It seems like I'm a little bit unhinged, and I show everything. Truly, John, you have to hold me back from like ruining everything that I've ever worked for when I get into, everything that's been difficult about my ex-Mormon journey, you could say. You have to hold me back.
I think you're awesome, Carah. I'm just I'm just joking, right?
Yeah. I look at everything as developing your own intuition. And again, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I do not think my spirituality rant was long whatsoever. Or maybe in my mind, I was like, I could talk about this for like 10 hours. And how do I just like drop a couple words here? But no, I truly believe that so much of our human existence is about coming out of this type of like cult mindset, what you would call like hive mind, where it's just easier to believe the things that other people believe and individuating into your own kind of person who develops an intuition and psychedelics. Kind of finding your own like fountain of where you're going to drink from. And it's difficult to break away from cults or different people or codependency where you're kind of always getting that fountain from somebody else. And so I think that's part of like the ex-Mormon journey, the journey from any kind of cult mindset. You could be in a cult of just your own family system where you only kind of have your bearings in relationship to somebody else, And I think that's what it's all about is this ex-Mormon journey is, okay, the whole world's open to you, but how do you make sure that you don't go off the deep end or hit rock bottom? So it's about developing that. Now that you're out of the church and it had this structure for you, how do you develop your own intuition and structure? How do you individuate from this kind of hive mind? And so that's my favorite part of, like, I would guess my summer, my 2023 is coming into my own self. And that's why I look back at everything that everyone's ever seen of me and be like, who was that? I don't like her. I'm on my own journey as a content creator and an ex-Mormon, coming into my own self before your eyes.
All right. I love it. A couple other fun comments. Guy McDude writes, the backfire effect is the night after eating Mexican burritos. What do you think?
I think that is really disrespectful to burritos.
Here's a good question. So Raider Free Mormon says Carah would not be kicked out of Ravenclaw. I would ask, if the Sorting Hat joined us right now in the room, Carah, which hall would you be sorted to?
Fun fact, I don't like Harry Potter and I have no interest in it, and I wouldn't even be able to answer that question. Sorry.
Carah is definitely Slytherin, and I am definitely Gryffindor. Gryffindor? What was
I don't know
Harry
anything about Harry Potter, but I know that was slander. That was you being like, I know I'm in the name brand one and Carah's in the evil one. That's all I can pick up from that.
Gryffindor, Slytherin. Gryffindor, Slytherin. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
All right. This is going in my John Dehlin hit piece for later on.
Rye the Guy says, I always thought baptism for the dead was weird. How would anyone know if a dead person accepted the church or not? You just did a list of names you were given, and that was that. Never heard another thing about it. I also always thought baptism for the dead was weird. And for me, the biggest weird part about it, and thanks for the super chat, Rye the Guy, the biggest weird thing about baptisms for the dead is that it just seems so dang inefficient. Like, we've got starving people, literacy problems, war, hunger, dirty water, and we're spending all our time getting baptized for dead people when we should be helping alleviate suffering and promoting literacy and education and that sort of thing. So for me, it was just a colossal waste of time and money and resources. And then you find out that most people's names have had their ordinance work done for them like 3 to 8 times, including Hitler and Eva Braun. Mm-hmm. That's what's weird about baptism for the dead for me. How about for you, Carah?
Yep. Again, everything within Mormonism is about like this control and then needing to have a temple recommend so that you can do these ordinances. And so if I was like crafting a religion that wanted to have like a high control group, I would create the temple. I would create things like baptisms for the dead so that you kind of feel like you're doing something without actually doing anything, but you feel superior. You feel like you're, acting out your religion. But I think, again, if you were really like Christian, I don't think Christ would be in the Bible saying, make sure you spend all of your time in these fancy buildings doing things that you don't really actually see the benefit for. You'd be out serving people. So it feels like a big waste of time and money, but it has its utility within the religion, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been fun. We've gotten a lot of good comments. Radio Free Mormon says that Carah is Ravenclaw, John is Hufflepuff. I'm curious what RFM would be, but I am absolutely Gryffindor. I am a 54-year-old version of Harry Potter without the scar on my forehead, and that's just a fact. I have to have at least one comment for Carah. It'll be appearance-based, apparently, and it says, Carah is a lovely lady.
Thanks.
So your worth is, I guess we know where your worth resides, according to
Appreciate you.
ZCMI Shopper.
I am happily married, though. Sorry, I'm taking everybody. Hands off.
All right. Well, it's time for me to go. I'm curious if you guys like these sort of informal Q&As and chats. I would love to hear it. I apologize that John Larson, that StreamYard didn't cooperate with John Larson today, and he wasn't able to appear. We know so many of you love John Larson, and so many of you love his stuff. We do. We're honored to have him on Mormon Stories for as long as he'll be with us. We love his stuff, and we're sorry it didn't work out today. I am curious to hear if you guys like this. It looks like there's some good feedback. Emma says she loved it. Emma says, sorry. Cynthia says more.
Should we call
Immortal
ourselves?
Aspera says, I miss John, but this was fun.
Latter Day Digest said Midnight Mormon's name is available. We could just call ourselves Midnight Mormons.
Talk about the person who will not be named. That's what I would say about that. Lopsided Leahona says, more please. Guy McDude says, more prep. Yes, but more prep. Anyway, wow. It looks like a lot of people really like this vibe, Carah. Would you ever be willing to come back and do this again?
I would do it 24 hours a day with you, John.
All right. Well, Carah, plug your stuff. Go. 30 seconds. Go.
Follow me on the Nuance Ho YouTube channel as well as Patreon. I have my podcast, Mormon History Hoedown, available Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to listen. I just put up some Israel-Palestine episodes this week I worked really hard on. I'm trying to be less funny and more thoughtful and do my best to add something valuable to this ex-Mormon community. And just happy to have the support wherever it is out there. Love you guys so much. That's all I got.
And Carah, thanks for coming. Please subscribe to Nuance Ho. Please donate to Nuance Ho, the Nuance Hug Foundation. Support Carah. And while you're at it, subscribe to the Mormon Stories Podcast YouTube channel. You can donate to Mormon Stories at mormonstories.org. Click on the donate button, become a monthly donor. And we really appreciate your feedback. Go to mormonstories@gmail.com for feedback. And we love your ideas. And we appreciate the super chats tonight. We hope we got to all of your questions or comments. I think we did. And we just appreciate everyone who is a current donor because you make all this possible. So, tomorrow we'll see if Sean Reyes is or is not running for re-election. Carah, your bet is?
I don't know. I'm just excited to see.
And just for fun, I'm going to bet. You're not going to guess. Pick one.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to go ego. Yes. I'm going to say yes.
All right. So I'm going no. So let's bet like pizza or something. Pizza.
Okay. Deal.
Pizza. All right. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you with Sean Reyes. Thanks for joining us tonight. Be good to each other. Be kind to each other. We'll see you all soon again on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast and Nuance Ho. Take care, everybody.